Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Erica Schmerica Reality Recaps. Today we're going to be talking about 90 Day Fiancé Before the 90 Days, Season 5, Episode 9. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and go ahead and hit that notification bell to get notified about all new videos I'll be posting. Let's get started. Gino and Jasmine really brought all of the craziness as they picked up where they left off last week with Jasmine confronting Gino about having heard from his ex, I believe via social media, and the fact that Gino had been sending Jasmine's nude photos to his ex-girlfriend for some bizarre reason. Who does this? Who does this? The only way that Gino could justify this was that he was trying to show off his hot Panamanian girlfriend to make his ex jealous. But apparently, his ex was actually a sugar baby because he used to pay for professional dates. Mind blown. Anyway, so Jasmine was heartbroken. She was screaming. She freaked out. She stomped off. And Gino wandered back to their little bungalow on the deserted wasteland island that they were vacationing on and sat there when Jasmine comes steaming, like running back in and, asking him to explain himself once again. He, of course, tells her, I was just trying to make her jealous because you're so hot. So weird. Like, where was he even going with this? So Jasmine freaked out. She grabbed the electric toothbrush that he had gotten her, which I think was her engagement ring also, and threw it in the dirt, symbolism, and, stormed out. But stormed back in just to really let it hit home that he lost the best thing that ever happened to him, and making sure to make him feel equally as exposed as she did. She flipped off his hat and threw it out the door, showing his snow globe in the front, party shag carpeting in the back. He had this bizarre mullet going on. Apparently Gino thought if I wear a hat all the time and grow my little band of hair in the back, maybe people will think I have hair all over. So he had this odd kind of skunky mullet going on. So Gino was horrified, but he had a backup hat. He had a backup hat that he pulled out quickly and just threw back on. Jasmine vowed that she was going to get her own sugar daddy, the sugar daddy of all sugar daddies, because clearly Gino Lobux was not providing enough to deal with all of this crap. I don't know where this is going to go next week. I don't know how we can top this week with the throwing of the hat being the newest iconic 90-day moment. Back in Colombia, it was Mike's big moment to shine. He was finally going to propose to X-Men. So he waited nervously at the restaurant, open aired, thankfully, so he could, air himself out. And the whole familia was there, and they all sat down and had a really fancy, nice dinner, make a special fancy cake with a banner that said, "Will you marry me, X-Men?" So he got up and he made a speech after dinner and listed 10 things I like about Jimena, with one being her stringy, greasy highlights, one being her love for pink furniture, one being her ties to the Sicario. And then after that, and he read it in Spanish, Kenny, after that, he had the cake come out, popped the question. And of course they had to cut to the commercial break with a lot of suspenseful music of course they had to cut to the commercial break with a lot of suspenseful music while X-Men was sitting there crying. However, when they returned, she of course said "see," and her whole family was crying. Her dad was just watching this whole thing with tears in his eyes, picturing, the flag flying behind them and all of these wonderful things he can ask his son-in-law to buy for them. But it was very touching nonetheless. Mike declared it the best day ever, and said that he had the most beautiful woman in the world, while X-Men was all right, let's not go overboard. And I think that Harold and then Steven was actually very excited too. I was thinking of getting them a toaster, but I think Mike already bought her a toaster, so I think I'm just going to get them a slap chop or a ShamWow. And there were Caleb and Alina. So this is just beating a dead horse at this point. Obviously, he's never been that into her. He's still not that into her, even though he was into her in so many ways. They have the same conversation they've had the entire season thus far. Do you want to be my boyfriend? Check yes or no. And Caleb's well, when it comes to situations and commitment and knowing each other, we don't know each other, but we've known each other 13 years. And, I just like to follow my instinct and meditate. It's like, oh my God, well, just tell her you don't like her and let's move on. They had this conversation, much like many times they've had it before, in the bed, but then they also went on a scenic boat tour where they had the conversation yet again, and Caleb said the weather was nice. So that really changed it up for me personally. But then, right before they're about to leave, they had the conversation one more time, just for good measure, and he finally admitted that he's not sure that he could actually commit to helping somebody who's so disabled. Of course, it makes him look kind of crappy, but understandable. That is a big commitment. She kind of understood. She took it in strides, and, Caleb was just like, I mean, check plus off my list, but, I'm not going to commit to anything. So then they went to the airport. They said goodbye, and Caleb made sure to call somebody over to push Alina's wheelchair to her gate, even though they both went through security, and headed off to his, probably grabbed a little jerky at, the Hudson News and, like shrugged the whole thing off and left. Like, it's all part of the journey, It's all part of the journey. Clearly, we won't be seeing any more of them. So this was the big finale. There's no tell-all. And I might just write a little recap about my own direction I could see this going in. Because why not? Then there were Memphis and Hazmat. So Memphis, of course, brought her A game with her caveman language skills this week. And she woke up in the hotel room from last time, and she's like, me so hungry, me want food, me don't want to be in bed no more, me like sexy time longer, me happy. I mean, with the caveman talk. So she and Hamza woke up. She's much more satisfied than she was the first time that they had sexy time, because that was 30 seconds. So this must have been like 1 full minute. The two of them headed out from the hotel to go to a fancy lunch where they had huge plates full of food, because Memphis said, me so hungry, me need chicken, steak, and fish. So as they're eating, she brings up the topic of a prenush, if you're a Juliana fan, a prenup. And Hamza is so much confused. They apparently don't have that in Tunisia. Hamza was super upset that, she's already thinking about divorce and she's already not trusting him. So Hamza explained that, this kind of made him uneasy, but he didn't want to lose big boobies Memphis, so he kind of brushed over it. Also, he told her that he likes when she eats a big lunch because it gives you fat boobies, and that's what he's really into, and that is the glue in this relationship. So after they left there, they went in the cab to the consulate, as she says it, where they had to get paperwork to get married. So as they go over there, they have this whole other conversation where she's asking about the wedding, and he claims that he's going to plan the whole wedding. But meanwhile, she's like, how much money you have bank account? How much money you have bank account? And, he's like, no savings, baby. Sexy. I'm sexy. Yes. No savings. So he is flat broke. You would have thought all things to be discussed earlier on before this engagement, but no, that's just not how they roll. So neither of them seem particularly happy with each other. It's kind of confusing as to why the two of them are still together, except for the fat boobies. And this week we had Ben and his imaginary friend, Mahogany. So, what kind of a name is Mahogany? Obviously it's fake. Also, what kind of nicknames are we going with? Like Hoggy? Mohog? Like, what are we doing with Mahogany? I don't even know where to go with this. Anyway, so Ben is at his hotel room. He's getting buff in the Hampton Inn Peru hotel gym, and he's working out, and then he heads back, using that airtime to really show off the abs again. And then he heads back to his hotel room where he tells us that he's been texting Mahogany and he hasn't received one reply since. But he also confessed to writing, a very soulful story called Runaway Train. I didn't know he was such a Soul Asylum fan, but apparently he wrote this whole story, something about a couple on a train that's crashing and they're wearing fancy outfits. And then they said, to hell with the crashing train, and they just danced. Not really sure where he's going with that. Kind of makes the whole stalker theme seem more almost like getting to a serial killer point. Adding a little weird text and whatnot. But anyway, he decided he's going to go on a love voyage, much like David before him with Lana, to San Bartolo, where Mahogany is supposedly from. So he calls his friend just to let him know about his plan. His friend tries to talk him off the ledge, but of course, there's no turning back. We're on this train. That's Runaway Train. We're not turning back, never coming back. and tries to talk him down. Not happening. He takes a cab to San Bartolo and asks the cab driver for a restaurant recommendation so he can sit patiently and wait, much like David and also like Ricky. Do you remember that guy? Ricky? Whatever happened to that guy? He was awful. Anyway, he sat at the restaurant for like 45 minutes, ordered nothing but a water, and just sat there looking, probably thinking of more stories he could write and scare her with. It left us all in suspense to see if Mahogany is really going to show up